When it comes to the name Kurt Angle, you automatically think about how he's one of the greatest to ever do it in professional wrestling. A multi-time world champion, so many classic matches, whether if it's in TNA, WWE, or any other company. A man who performed in the amateurs his whole life and achieved so many accolades, including, winning a gold medal with a freaking broken neck. But when it comes to sports entertainment and professional wrestling, he took to it like he had been there before already, like it was nothing. And I'm talking about from just the wrestling period to the charisma, the character development, and everything. He came into his own so very quickly. And looking back at it, when he first got to the company of the WWE in 1999, and the man had accomplished so much within his rookie year. I don't think never saw anything like this, before him. I mean, maybe afterwards with Brock Lesnar, but when it comes to Kurt Angle, come on, man. Nobody ever did it like him. And so into today's episode, we're gonna break down Kurt Angle's rookie year in the WWE, as far as all of his accomplishments and just everything he did within just 1 year, man. Just his rise to the top so quickly, man. But before we get into that, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and let people know that the Turnbuckle City page is where it is at, man. Turnbuckle City. Alright, now we got that out the way. Let's go. After Kurt Angle will win the gold medal in the 1996 Olympic Games in freestyle wrestling in Atlanta, it was a real bittersweet moment. Sweet due to the fact that he was doing a lot of press across the country, doing interviews, having a lot of fame and notoriety. He had a few endorsements, and yeah, he was like really popular. But bitter because that train really didn't last that long, and he really had to figure out what he was going to do for a career. He was receiving offers from all three major wrestling companies, WCW, ECW, and WWE. He had turned down the offer from WWE before, and he would end up meeting with WCW, and he would end up declining that offer as well. And the ECW one, he didn't take that deal due to the fact that when he made an appearance at the ECW show, the storyline that they had going at the time was really disturbing as far as towards Kurt, and he didn't really like that. Kurt would contact Vince to see if the offer for the WWE was still on the table. And he would do a few tryouts for the company, and then by August of 1998, he would be signed to the company and placed in the developmental system, which was Memphis Championship Wrestling, aka Power Pro Wrestling. Kurt would spend about 6 months in Power Pro Wrestling, sharpening his skills in the ring and adding his amateur style to the product as well. In March of 1999, this is when Kurt will be moved to the main roster. From March of 99 up to his debut in November, he will wrestle all dark matches against all opponents as far as is on the roster. As the company was piecing together his image for his debut, it's been said that it was Vince who was behind a lot of the character development for Kurt. As far as telling him what to say, how to troll the crowd and insult them, and, just basically be a pompous, cocky individual. But after a year, Kurt would take the direction of his career into his own hands because he had got the hang of it. Kurt would officially make his debut at the Survivor Series pay-per-view on November 19, 1999 against Shawn Stasiak, and it'll be the second match on the card of that night. Kurt would be introduced as the company's real athlete and the only gold medal winner in the company's history. The match started off with a quick tie-up, and Kurt would end up taking Stasiak down with a fireman carry takedown, and like a minute into the match, man, the crowd started chanting boring. Kurt would proceed to hit Stasiak with a waistlock takedown into a front face headlock. The two would go back and forth, trading hammerlocks, arm bars, and takedowns throughout the match. After Kurt would hit Stasiak with a belly-to-belly suplex, Shawn would take over the match a bit, and also he would have a lot of pinfall attempts. He tried to slow Kurt down with a sleeper hold, and Kurt would find his way out of it, and we would hit Stasiak with a nice clothesline. Then Kurt would proceed to leave the ring and cut a short promo against the crowd for booing him.
an Olympic gold medalist. But you do not boo Olympic gold medalists.
He would go back and forth once again throughout the match. Shawn would go for a crossbody, which he would end up coming up short, and Kurt would end up capitalizing off that miss, and he would hit Stasiak with a angle slam, and 1, 2, 3, and he would pick up his very first victory in the company. After Kurt made his debut at the Survivor Series, he would end up going on a mean winning streak. On Raw, on November 15th, he would pick up a win against The Godfather. On SmackDown, November 18th, he would end up defeating Gangrel. On Raw, November 22nd, he would defeat Mark Henry. On SmackDown, November 25th, he would defeat D'Lo Brown. November 29th, on Raw, he would end up defeating Val Venis. And after this is when him and Steve Blackman would end up becoming like a little tag team. December 2nd, on SmackDown, he would team up with Steve Blackman to take on the Headbangers, and those two would end up, getting the victory over the Headbangers. December 6th, on Raw, Angle and Blackman would end up defeating the Hardy Boys. December 9th, Angle and Blackman would lose in a tag team match against the Dudley Boys, but since Blackman was the one who received the pinfall, Kurt was still considered undefeated as well, and this would cause some friction between the two. And this is when they would end up scheduling the match 3 days later at the Armageddon pay-per-view. The pay-per-view would take place on December 12th at Fort Lauderdale, and their match was the third match on the card, where Angle would end up picking up a victory against Steve Blackman. Kurt wouldn't compete on the following night on Raw, which took place on December 13th. But on SmackDown, December 16th, Kurt will go against Test and win by DQ due to interference from Steve Blackman. December 20th, on Raw, Kurt would win against Viscera due to more help from Blackman. December 23rd, Kurt will win against one-on-one match against Edge. December 22nd, on Raw, Kurt would defeat the Headbangers in the 201 handicap match with some more help from Blackman. And this was during the McMahon-Helmsley era, and Triple H was trying to put a stop to Kurt's winning streak. Hence the reason why he had him in a handicap match. December 30th, on SmackDown, Kurt would end up going against Rikishi, and he would end up, picking up a victory right there. Now, heading into the year 2000, the first Raw of the millennium would take place on January 3rd, and Kurt would have to go against Kane. But before that match, Triple H told Blackman that if he hits Kane with that kendo stick to help Kurt Angle win that match, he was going to be fired. So what did Blackman do? He would go down there and hit Angle with the kendo stick to help caused a disqualification, which gave Angle the victory and kept his winning streak going. On January 6th on SmackDown, Kurt will win against The Rock via DQ. January 10th, Kurt will end up teaming up with Blackman again, and this was an episode of Raw, and they will end up going against the Hardy Boys, and they will lose, which, Kurt will walk away, and Blackman will end up having to take a pinfall. On January 13th on SmackDown, the same thing would end up happening when they would go against Edge and Christian. And he was just making sure that Blackman took the pinfall, so therefore he wouldn't be considered as, as a loss. He could still be undefeated. Now, on January 17th on Raw, this is when Angle and Blackman would face off one last time, and Kurt would end up picking up that victory. On January 20th on SmackDown, Blackman would team up with Al Snow to go against Kurt Angle and the British Bulldog, which the Bulldog and Angle would lose that match, and Bulldog was the one who took the pinfall. Now, that following Sunday on January 23rd would be the Royal Rumble 2000. And this is when the match that Angle was a part of, be the first match on the card. They were saying he had a surprise or mystery opponent. And the dirt sheets and the whole Madison Square Garden already knew who it was. It was Taz. Taz had signed with the company in late '99 and coming from ECW, and they had been promoting his vignettes and stuff, saying the mood is about to change and all that stuff. And Taz and Angle would end up having a pretty decent match, and Taz would end up winning via submission. Kurt ended up passing out far as from the Taz mission, and I guess they reversed the decision, said it was an illegal choke, so I guess counted as a loss towards Kurt's winning streak, so I guess he was still considered undefeated. So, and Kurt wouldn't compete against no one until I think the January episode of Raw. It was January 31st. And he was in his hometown of Pittsburgh. And this is when he would end up suffering his first pinfall loss. And this was against The Rock. Now, on February 3rd, SmackDown, Kurt would pick up the victory against The Rock and Taz in the triple threat match. February 7th on Raw, this is when Kurt would be a part of a classic moment. He would end up picking up a victory against Mark Henry via disqualification, but afterwards he would proceed to hit Mae Young with the angle slam, and this is a moment that I still laugh at to this day, man. It's still fun. It's a classic Attitude Era moment. And then in recent interviews, actually Kurt has spoke about this spot but he talked about, how him and Mae Young went over the spot for her to get, put into the angle slam and slam.
Before we headed out, we were in gorilla position, and Mae Young comes up to me and says, "Mr. Angle, I want to tell you what I want you to do to me tonight." I said, "Okay, Mae." She said, "I want you to spike my ass as hard as you can into that mat." I was like, "Okay, Mae, if that's what you want, I'll do it." And, the crazy thing is, when I was doing it, I'm thinking, if I slam this woman, she's going to end up coming up as dust.
Oh, God.
She was 82 years old. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Slamming this woman. She could literally die. And, Mae was just incredible because she would do whatever you asked.
On February 10th on SmackDown will become a historic night for Kurt because this is when he would get his first taste of WWF Gold in the company. He would end up defeating Val Venis for the European Championship. And after this, Angle would get involved with a feud with Chris Jericho. And this is when they would end up meeting each other at the next pay-per-view, which took place in late February, which was the No Way Out pay-per-view. And it was Angle versus Jericho for Jericho's Intercontinental title, which Kurt would end up cheating to defeat Jericho, and he would end up becoming the Eurocontinental champion. Kurt would defend his titles against different opponents up to WrestleMania 2000. Around this time, the company would end up pairing him with former WWE champion Bob Backlund. That really didn't last that long, and Kurt, he felt like he can be by himself. And Kurt would end up being involved in a two-fall triple threat match for both of his titles at WrestleMania. The first fall would be for the Intercontinental title, which Chris Benoit would end up pinning Chris Jericho to win that title, and the second fall would be for the European title, which Jericho would pin Benoit to win that title. Kurt would end up losing both of his titles, but he wasn't a part of any of the falls. Crazy. Now, by the next pay-per-view, Kurt will be a part of a short feud against the Big Show. The two would end up going against each other at Backlash 2000. And during this time, this is when Big Show was dressing up as different characters, trying to go into the Hollywood phase ever since his appearance on Saturday Night Live. Big Show would end up defeating Kurt at Backlash 2000. Now, heading into the next pay-per-view, which would be Judgment Day 2000, Team Ek, which was Edge, Christian, and Kurt, would end up being in a 6-man tag match against Rikishi and Too Cool. The match was pretty decent, and Team Ek would end up losing that match. Now, afterwards, it was King of the Ring time. And after all of the matches that took place to get to the final two, it will be Kurt versus Rikishi for the finals at King of the Ring 2000. And if you've never seen this match was pretty good. Even though it was pretty kind of short, but seeing these two go against each other and the finish, how Kurt's belly to belly suplex Rikishi off the top rope to get the win, man, it was crazy. But yes, after all that, Kurt will end up being victorious, and he will be crowned the 2000 King of the Ring. Now, as you can see, that they were really pushing Kurt, giving him that push. And after this, Kurt will begin a feud with The Undertaker, which will kick off probably like that on July 2nd episode of Raw. And this is when Kurt will cause Undertaker and Kane the tag team titles. And on the following episode of SmackDown on July 6th, Kurt would end up celebrating after a win, and he would trash the Undertaker's bike with a whole bunch of food and stuff, and the dead man was pissed. And Kurt kept trying to apologize, but Taker wasn't trying to hear none of that. So on the July 10th episode of Raw, which is one of the most classic and funniest segments between the two would happen. Both would end up hitting the ring, calling out Kurt for far as his. Kurt would apologize again and say that, like they say on the streets, my bad. He was such a dork. So to make things up, people tried to gift Taker with this ridiculous looking kiddie scooter. And even Taker had trouble trying to stay in character and keep from laughing during the segment because it was just so funny. But by the end of this episode, their match was already set for Fully Loaded, the next pay-per-view. But also, keep in mind, this was around the time when they were slowly pushing the love triangle storyline with Kurt, Stephanie, and Triple H. But by the time the Go Home show of SmackDown before Fully Loaded, Kurt would end up kicking things up a notch against The Undertaker. He would destroy Undertaker's wife with some crazy liquid acid stuff, and that really took it over the top. 3 days later will be the Fully Loaded pay-per-view. Kurt would really, be scared and paranoid as far as facing against The Undertaker, and he would end up losing that match. Now, after Fully Loaded, this is when they will focus more on the love triangle storyline with Kurt, Stephanie, and Triple H. And Kurt and Stephanie kept stating that they were only just friends. They don't have any feelings for each other. But Triple H, he wasn't trying to hear none of that. He felt like Kurt was full of shit. Especially since Kurt would go behind Triple H's back to ask Stephanie could she be his business partner and accompany him to the ring during his matches. It even got to the point where Triple H was questioning Triple H was questioning Kurt's sexuality. So he felt like, so you only want to be my wife's friend, and basically calling it and saying he was on the other side. And by this time, the triple threat match for the WWE title was already set. It would be The Rock versus Triple H versus Kurt Angle. But things would get wild on the August 24th episode of SmackDown right before the SummerSlam pay-per-view. The main event was supposed to be The Rock and Lita against Kurt and Stephanie. Steph would end up getting hurt during the match, which caused Triple H to come down and take her to the back to the locker room. Triple H would go back out to the ring and help Kurt. But while Triple H would end up getting his ass kicked by The Rock, the Hardys, and Lita, Kurt would end up sneaking out back to the stage to go to the locker room with Stephanie and Triple H to apologize to her. And he would end up planting a huge kiss on Stephanie, and she liked it. She definitely liked it, and both would end up smiling afterwards. Man, talk about some heat before you go to the pay-per-view. Now, on to SummerSlam 2000, and this main event time. Kurt and Triple H will go at it before The Rock would even get to the ring. But before The Rock would even be able to come out, something terrible would end up taking place. Triple H would try to perform a pedigree on Kurt on the announcer's table, and the table would end up collapsing, and it would drive Kurt's forehead right into the concrete floor, and it would cause a major concussion for Kurt. Like it was like a legitimate injury. And Kurt, according to Kurt, he was snoring like he was out of there. And so Kurt while he's receiving the medical attention, The Rock finally comes out, and Rock and Triple H had to take over the match for a while. Now, as they're trying to take Kurt to the back to give him more medical attention, Triple H makes sure that doesn't happen and brings him right back out to the match. But The Rock will interfere, and him and Triple H will end up going back at it again. Now, by this time, Stephanie has come out to check on Kurt, and Stephanie will end up come out try to assist Triple H during the match, and he sees her out because he already told her you got to stay in the back, and he's like, no, go back to this locker room. He's pissed off. And as Rock and Triple H continue the match, Stephanie is dragging Kurt back out to the ring. Now, according to Kurt, who doesn't remember anything after the concussion happened, he said that Stephanie, Triple H, and Rock had to help him with the different spots for the rest of the match. They had to call him out to him because he was just really out. He was looping. He was out of there. And the finish of the match would be Triple H accidentally knocking out Stephanie when he was aiming for Kurt. Kurt would lay Triple H out with the sledgehammer, and Rock would get rid of Kurt and hit Triple H with the people's elbow. And 1, 2, 3, he will win and retain the title. And while Triple H was knocked out, Kurt would take Stephanie backstage, and that was the end of that pay-per-view. By the next pay-per-view, which would end up being Unforgiven, Triple H and Kurt would end up settling their differences in a no-holds-barred match with Mick Foley as the special guest referee. Because it really gotten to the point where the friendship/business relationship between Steph and Kurt was interrupting Steph and Triple H's marriage. Steph would end up causing Kurt the match by kicking him in the nuts, all because Triple H forced her to pick between him and Kurt. She would choose Hunter, and Triple H would end up, picking up the win during that match. Now, the next night on Raw, you would see the return of Stone Cold Steve Austin, on Raw, and this would be their premiere debut on TNN. And Stone Cold made his return at Unforgiven, and Stone Cold would let it be known that he wasn't going to stop searching for the person who ran him over last November at Survivor Series 1999. Mick Foley would join in as he would, congratulate Steve on his comeback and let him know that he would help Stone Cold with his investigation. And Chris Benoit would come out demanding a rematch against The Rock for the WWE title because he felt like he was screwed during the Fatal 4-Way match the night before, which had Kane, Undertaker, Benoit, and The Rock as far as for the WWE title. Then Kurt would join in as well, first telling the world that he forgives Stephanie for her actions last night because, she ended up causing him the match, and he knew that she was forced by Triple H to do so. Then he will also demand that Mick put him in the match against Triple H once again, but that request got denied. Then Kurt would turn his attention towards Austin, demanding an apology because, backstage at Unforgiven the night before, Austin would end up, kicking Kurt's ass backstage at Unforgiven. Now, of course, Kurt wouldn't get an apology. He would end up getting his ass kicked with a stunner. And the rematch that would end up happening that night, it would be Chris Benoit versus The Rock for the WWE title, which would be the main event of that night, which saw Shane McMahon get involved, which saw Stephanie and Triple H get involved. Now, during this match would spark the feud between Triple H and Chris Benoit because Triple H would cause Benoit the match and the title for that night. After The Rock picked up the victory, Kurt would come down, taking over, kicking out The Rock and Triple H. Chris Benoit would get involved, and he would, both Kurt and Benoit was kicking the shit out of Triple H. Now, Steph would get involved, slapping Kurt, trying to get him to stop stomping on Triple H. Benoit would get involved between those two, and he would end up giving Stephanie a mean headbutt. So the following SmackDown, it will be a tag match where it would have Kurt and Benoit versus The Rock and Triple H. Now, during this match, it looked like The Rock and Triple H was about to pick up the win, but when The Rock tried to hit Kurt with the chair, Stephanie would end up getting involved, stopping The Rock from hitting Kurt with the chair, which caused Angle to hit the Angle Slam and pick up the victory. Now, in the very next episode of Raw, it will be a number one contenders match where Triple H versus Kurt Angle. The winner would end up being the number one contender to face The Rock for the WWE title at No Mercy, which Stephanie and Chris Benoit would get involved in, and Benoit would cause Triple H the match as far as payback because Triple H calls him the WWE title, which allowed Kurt to pick up the victory and be the number one contender for the WWE title. Now, in the following SmackDown episode, it will be Team X, Edge, Christian, and Kurt versus Too Cool and Rikishi, which Stephanie would help Team X pick up the win. And afterwards, Kurt would ask Stephanie to be his manager and then help accompany him to the ring on a permanent basis. Steph said she would think about it, but she said thank you for appreciating the work that she does. Now, the main event for that SmackDown will be The Rock versus Kane for the WWE title, which Kurt will get involved in, but also Rikishi as well, because at that time, Kane and Rikishi had issues. Rikishi would start getting some hits in on Kane, which caused a DQ, and Kane would end up being the winner. The Rock wasn't too happy about that. Now, the next episode of Raw, you would have The Rock and Rikishi against Kurt and Kane in a tag team match. Now, during this match, Kane would end up leaving Kurt by himself and to deal with The Rock and Rikishi, and those two would end up picking up the victory. Now, sadly, after this match, this is when the bombshell will be revealed that it was Rikishi who ran over Stone Cold last November. This left The Rock hurt and confused because, The Rock and Rikishi are blood relatives, and he wouldn't know why he would do such a thing, but according to Rikishi, he did it for The Rock. But on the next episode of SmackDown, Stephanie take Kurt up on this offer to be his manager and to help accompany him to the ring on a permanent basis, and she would help him pick up a win against Kane that night. Now, in the same episode of SmackDown, it will be Val Venis versus The Rock, but before the match could start, Kurt and Stephanie would cut a promo calling The Rock a liar, saying that he lying about saying he didn't have anything with Rikishi running down Stone Cold, that he assisted, he knew all about it, blah, blah, blah. And just cutting a real nerdy, heelish, pompous promo against The Rock. Now, after The Rock would pick up the win against Val, Kurt would come down to beat The Rock down, like something serious. And The Rock would get the upper hand a bit as he's prepared to, he's beating down Kurt. And then Stephanie would get involved, and he's about to get Stephanie to rock bottom. Kurt comes out of nowhere, hit The Rock with a low blow, and leaves him laying in the mat. Now, in the next episode of Raw, as Kurt and Stephanie are having a business meeting, Triple H steps in, telling Steph to leave because he would like to talk to Kurt alone. Basically, let him know that Steph now is his responsibility, and anything happens to her, it's his ass. Now, the main event will have Team Ek against The Rock and the Hardy Boys, with Steph, again, would help assist Team Ek pick up the victory. Now, in the go-home episode of SmackDown before No Mercy, it'll be a four corners match, which will be Kurt versus Triple H versus The Rock versus Benoit. Now, Stephanie was trying to help Triple H not get pinned by The Rock, and it would end up backfiring, so it would end up helping Kurt actually pin Triple H, and she was just looking flabbergasted and shocked. Oh my God, what did I do? I was not trying to let that happen. But she was trying to make sure Triple H didn't get pinned by The Rock, but ended up getting pinned by Kurt instead. So, now it was set. It was No Mercy. Now, the two Kurt Angle and Rock would actually end up having a very, very great match. And now, according to Kurt, as he said in previous interviews, he wasn't ready to be WWE champion. But The Rock was still willing to drop the title to him. Rock didn't care. So, as far as this match, due to interference from Stephanie, Triple H, Rikishi, Kurt Angle was able to go on to win the WWE title for the very first time. And he had only been a part of the main roster for 11 months. And he would end up accomplishing so much in a very small amount of time. And looking back at it, as a kid, of course, we liked our favorites, as far as The Rock, Stone Cold, Undertaker, and all that. But as a kid, I didn't really appreciate Kurt Angle the way I do now as an adult. Looking back at it, everything about his character development and how he came into the pro wrestling world was just phenomenal. And just looking back at it as far as his rookie year, because I grew up watching all of this. Grew up during the Attitude Era. I was 10 years old. And looking back at it, it's like, damn, Kurt was definitely that dude. And he played his part so well. And for someone who come from an amateur wrestling background and to come in and rise to the top and just pick up on everything so very, very quickly, it made me appreciate him even more because I look back at it and do my research once again. And a lot of this stuff I kind of remember, but then looking back at it, like from his promos, the way he act, as far as like the nerdy, dorky stuff, and as far as the comedy, and just everything about Kurt during that time in his rookie year, I deeply appreciate, and then will go on to appreciate him even more as far as looking back at his whole WWE career and his TNA career, and just everything he has done. Like, he is, one of the GOATs. And just looking back at his rookie year, coming in on a winning streak, winning the Intercontinental title, winning the European title, winning the King of the Ring tournament, coming in and having great matches, being main event status, and just so fast. We've never seen anything like that before Kurt. And looking back at it now, I deeply appreciate it, man. I deeply appreciate it. And after Kurt would end up winning the WWE title for the first time, he would have the title for a few months, and he would end up dropping it back to The Rock at No Way Out 2001. Which, like I said, this was happening within a year, man. All of this. So that's the conclusion of this video. This is Kurt Angle's rookie year in the WWE, man. Let me know in the comments what was your favorite match or your favorite moment during Kurt's rookie year. Like, let me know in the comments. Let me know. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share. Let people know that Turnbuckle City is where it's at. And be on the lookout for more videos. I'm out. Peace.